back to Kuseni Dlamini and his career, and the fact that once you had read for your master's in philosophy at Oxford, you then joined De Beers, and it was a long career in the Anglo American stable, and you have pointed out that it was also at the coalface right in the beginning, at the De Beers mining operations. It's interesting that in July 2008 you were appointed as CEO of Anglo American South Africa, and then a year later you accept the position as CEO of Old Mutual South Africa. And when I was doing the research, I looked at this long and hard, and I thought, but you spent your whole life in this Anglo American stable, and now you're moving from the mining industry to the financial services industry. What happened? Did something happen with Cynthia Carroll?
Actually, I had a jolly good time at Anglo American, and I do miss my colleagues there. What happened is simply that Old Mutual offered me something that was difficult to refuse. And secondly, also I have an appetite for learning. I have an appetite for challenge, to be stretched. I like to venture into uncharted terrains and territories. This was an opportunity par excellence for me to do that, to move into a different industry that I have got no background in, to move into a different company that I've not worked for hitherto. So I found it very tantalizing, and I found it very compelling and appealing indeed.
Was it also financially tantalizing? That's what the audience is wanting me to ask you right now.
Well, I've never been driven by finance. It's always been the least of my considerations. I've always been driven by the desire to make a difference in society.
You've chosen a very interesting time to join the financial services arena, and you took on the position CEO Old Mutual South Africa on the 1st of September 2009. Now, we all know that the market bottomed in March of 2009. Was there a moment where you thought, what have I done?
There was indeed, but there was also this sense of comfort that the old rules of the game in the industry are being shaken. And I joined the industry at a great opportunity where new questions were being sought to old sort of challenges. New answers were being sought to old questions. And also some of the old questions were becoming irrelevant. We needed to start asking new questions in terms of how do we survive the most unprecedented economic crisis, at least in the last 70 years. So it was a time of inquiry in Old Mutual, a time of inquiry in the industry. We were looking at ways and means of making sure that we weather the storms and we survive the crisis that we were facing. And we were asking ourselves about our customer value proposition, about how we engage with our customers, how do we retain them, and how do we hold their hands and walk through these storms with them. So it was a time of excitement and a time of energy and discovery and inquiry, which I thoroughly enjoyed, actually.
Old Mutual South Africa is a very robust business. Now, although you haven't been in the hot seat that long, surely the question does come from your staff as to what on earth Old Mutual Global is doing, deploying money into a US life business when it's a bottomless pit, and we know that business is now up for sale by Julian Roberts' own admission. I have spoken to him recently in the same hot seat that you're sitting in. But isn't it a question that gets asked regularly from your staff at Old Mutual South Africa? What is the globalization strategy all about? Shouldn't you be South Africa facing and realize that this is your strength?
Going back to the issue of globalization that we discussed earlier on, South Africa cannot be a global superpower if it's just focusing locally. Companies are actually the greatest ambassadors of countries. So it is important for companies that are homegrown, that are South African, to go out there, take on the best in the world and win. The problem becomes when you start losing. But the challenge is not so much about making mistakes, it's about learning from the mistakes. We have learned from our mistakes as Old Mutual, as we've just mentioned. Julian Roberts on the 11th of March announced that we are looking at exiting our US business. We'll be doing an IPO for our asset management business. And we are really asking ourselves questions about how do we create shareholder value and stakeholder benefit on a sustainable basis going forward. And we believe now, with our new vision of being our customers' most trusted partner, passionately committed to helping them achieve their lifetime financial goals. We are positioned to take on the best in the world. We are positioned to globalize in a responsible way, especially in the emerging market space, which we as South Africans understand better because we are part of it. We believe we can go into China and make money, go into India and make money, go into Mexico, go into Colombia.
You're talking about all the emerging markets
go
here,
into
rather
Africa,
than the
and go into
developed
Africa.
world.
Indeed, because we understand the emerging markets better. There is a lot of work being done by our colleagues in Scandia, Europe. There is a lot of work being done, as I mentioned, in the US to really revisit our portfolio there. We constantly have to critically ask ourselves the relevant questions about how do you create shareholder value? Does it make sense for us to continue to be in the markets where we are? What's the kind of criteria that we have to use in order to select which market to be at? And what are the real hurdles that we need to look at in order for us to have comfort?